My name is Jeremiah Birnbaum. I'm a practicing artist in Vancouver, British Columbia. I work primarily in drawing mediums. Charcoal and graphite are kind of the two mediums I work the most in. But I've expanding more recently into using mixed media, alcohol markers, ink, as well as colored pencils and some acrylic mediums. But my practice has been, for the most part, kind of a mix between traditional drawing, portraiture, figurative work, but I usually have a conceptual component to the work as well. I've been producing for about 20 years, and so you develop your own set of rules, your own set of kind of standards of what you work at. I started working backwards from that because I found it was becoming so regimented, and I wanted to get back to just sketching and enjoying that. So that's when I started working more in mixed medium, and that was a way of just letting loose and just kind of not being dictated by my own preconceived notion of this is how I will draw today. And that's been kind of loosening me up and getting me back just into more of an enjoyment of just making marks and picking away at a drawing. I work predominantly in portrait and figure work. So if I was doing that, I would structure the figure. I'd either break the portrait down into the elements of the face, or I would sketch the image out in terms of where I want the figures within the composition. When I'm working in a more loose capacity with just kind of reacting to the marks on the page, though, it's sometimes I'm just reacting and seeing what I can do with it. Sometimes if I've laid a portrait down and then I give the image to my kids, I have to kind of respond to what they've done. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it's kind of beyond being able to bring it back to a point, and we just kind of have fun with it, the three of us. But it's interesting. I know what I can do when I have a blank sheet of paper and I can start it and I have complete control over how I want the drawing to proceed, as opposed to if I now have to respond to what somebody else has done and there's a mark that I can't necessarily erase, or it doesn't fit within the way I want the image to present. I have to work around that and kind of get creative with it. So it's, as I said, that's been fun and loosening myself up and just having a little more freedom with it, a little less pristine with my expectation of what the drawing should look like. I'll do a long format drawing, so my drawings will take up to 80 hours. So in that sense, I don't usually work from a live model. I'll often shoot my own reference imagery, or I work a lot with iconic images, and so I'll take an iconic image, but I'm then manipulating it. Part of my background, I'm a forensic artist, and so I do two-dimensional, three-dimensional postmortem reconstruction. So what I've been doing lately is actually taking iconic images and then breaking them down to, I take a portrait of someone, I would break it down to the skull. The latest series and body work I've been working with has been taking musical icons who are deceased, and then rendering them down to the skull. And so using the landmarks on the face, using my knowledge of basically the way the skull's constructed, I'll take a series of different photographs so I can have an understanding of how that person would look, and then try and render them down to what their skull would be. I try to come in at least 3 to 4 times a week for a set amount of hours and get work done. And if I can get more days in beyond that, I'll come in and work that way. And if not, I'm working at home, being a parent as well, trying to squeeze it around. Sometimes those hours when I've got someone awake or someone asleep, I can get some work done. But I try to get in here consistently every week, just so that I keep my drawings moving forward and keep on my timelines. I went to Victoria College of Art in Victoria, British Columbia. Initially, I did 2 years over there, which was a portfolio school. So it was really very much developed in the traditional means. After that, I did my degree I finished my degree at Emily Carr and kind of developed more the conceptual side. But I've always been drawn to the technical aspects of drawing and the execution of the craft of it. My technique I've kind of developed over the years. Working in charcoal, I use a lot of compressed charcoal. I'll finish off with willow, but predominantly I'm actually really hard on the paper. I use a series of chamois. I'm notorious about pilfering napkins from coffee shops because I'll fold them down and kind of make my own chamois and blenders with them so that I can get clean edges. And I'll try and extend the medium as far as I can so that I get gradations that'll give me more volume to the image. Depending on the surface I'm working on, if I'm working on a paper, I'll usually want something that's got some weight to it. Again, just the amount of blending I put into it. I've torn through a number of pieces of paper. I'll also work on plastic paper called Graphics. And with that one, I can really extend the medium. I work more so with graphite on that one, and I can extend the medium quite a ways through with it. So I'm able to put down a small amount of medium and just extend it, and I get a nice control over the gradation that comes from the grayscale. I was part of a collective for about a dozen years. We founded in Vancouver here. I did a series of drawings on rolling paper, like for cigarettes, and it's a rice paper. And so I found with that one, charcoal would not adhere to it The humidity, heat and humidity from my hands would cause the paper to roll up. So graphite was the only way that I could actually get a drawing on it. And I was working at a really miniature scale with that. So to be able to actually get the effect I want, I kind of had to work my way through which mediums worked, which ones were successful, and then figure out even just how to make that work. So I'd have to sharpen my pencils down and have about 1.5 inches of the graphite exposed as opposed to the wood right close to it, so that I could have a really sharp point and keep the drawing in a minute scale. I paint with acrylics and oil, but over the years that's diminished more and more. My successes come through my drawings. I've been able to show in public and private galleries throughout Canada, the United States, and it's been my drawings that I've been the most successful with. And I think you just kind of, you start going down a path, and next thing you know, a period of time's gone by, and that's the medium you're working in. I fell in love with charcoal. I absolutely love. That's probably my favorite medium to work in. I like the rich tones you can get with that, and just how far you can extend it, and the feelings of texture that you can create, whether it's something hard or soft. You've got all the ability with this medium. When I'm initially laying down, if I'm working on something like this with a charcoal piece, when I'm initially making the marks, the marks themselves are standing out until I get to the point where there's a uniform component to it, it's consistent. And then I can start to play with the gradation within the image itself. And that's why I use, as I said, a number of chamois. I use a lot of different types of erasers as well to cut back into it. And then I'm able to get different highlights, different shadows, different mid-tones to kind of draw and pull the image, so that you get a sense of the image appearing on different planes. And that way you feel something's coming towards you as opposed to something's receding into it. You're not working with cool or warm colors, so you're not able to create that sense of depth that way. So I find this one's more form and shadow and highlights. The General Compressed Charcoal Pencils was the one I initially used the most. The Nitram charcoal has been what I've moved to. I use a lot of that. I really enjoy their products a lot. And then Staedtler's been another one I've bought. But if I'm drawing a graphite, Staedtler's the one I've been my choice of pencil, as well as their erasers. I go through more erasers probably than I like to admit, but they just hold up consistently, and I know what to expect with the product itself. I know how to use it and manipulate it the way I want it to, and between that and the consistency, I find it works really well for my practice. I definitely rejected conceptualism when it was first introduced to me. I had quite a struggle with trying to understand why this was relevant, and then as I began to become a bit more educated, a bit more aware of why I'd be speaking with a piece, what I was trying to say with it, it really became a lot more central to my work. And I think it made the work more interesting. I would create installation formats so that you walked in and there'd be a component of either being surrounded by the drawings in a particular space. So I found the conceptual part was just as important to the work as my technical ability. And I never felt like I wanted to give up the technical quality for the conceptual. I really, at the end of the day, I love rendering. I love sitting here and trying to create a detail and get a realistic component. To me, that's what makes the work convincing, and that's what keeps it. I think it's what makes it stand out. But then when you marry that with a concept that is equally as compelling, I think you get a nice balance that engages people on different levels, so they can walk in and interpret their work at whichever inception point they have to engage it with. The rule of thumb that I was taught that I think I've maintained throughout my career is learn the rules before you break them. I know a lot of people who get into medium and they've got an angle they want to play at, and they go immediately to that. Having gone to a portfolio school and I learned a lot of technical components first, I learned we had light drawing, we had light painting, we had color theory, we had the elements to understand the mediums we're working with. And as a result, I've been able to, it's taken me 20 years to get to this point, but I've been able to get very comfortable with those tools essentially, so that I understand how to work with them and how to manipulate them in the way that I want to get the results I can get. I think if you jump off and just start going in a direction where you're going to put a unique spin on it, you're going to run into some limitations because you don't fully embrace the spectrum of what you can do with those tools. I'm definitely grateful for the schooling I had and for the amount of kind of regiment. I grew up an athlete, so I grew up in that structure where you had to train in order to understand how to play the game, and it's the same approach I took to art, and I'm quite thankful for it. At the beginning of my career, I was doing a lot more experimental in terms of the surface I was working with and trying to figure out how to work with the medium that way. And then I got kind of set in my ways for a good period of time, and now between having kids and just wanting to have a little more freedom, a little faster process in terms of having fun, getting a drawing and sitting down in one session, having the drawing complete. that was the impetus to get more experimental with it. And it's just been fun. It's been fun to incorporate it, and you kind of come to a point where you realize, okay, you're able to reach a certain ceiling with what you're working with, and you want to expand that beyond. The goal was to be exhibiting it and putting the drawings out there. So there's always a certain standard I have an expectation that the work will reach, and you have to kind of find a counterpoint to balance that with when you're experimenting. So you have to check your ego a little bit and kind of know you're gonna go from here. You got to come back down and work your way back up, which I think is a really healthy thing to do just with anything. And it's been fun. It's brought a lot of fun back into my work.
I'd like to thank Jeremiah Birnbaum for inviting us into his studio and sharing his insights, and of course all of you for watching. If portraiture is your thing and you'd like to learn more, be sure to check out our Beyond the Face series on our YouTube channel or at opusartsupplies.com.